Israeli military begins ground operations on the Palestinian side of Rafah. Hamas agrees to a Egypt and Qatar brokered ceasefire proposal. And the Syrian interim president announces a new government. Hello there, good morning. It's 10 o'clock Cairo local time and you're watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest from Gaza. The Israeli occupation military has announced that it had begun ground operations in the Janina neighborhood in the Palestinian side of Rafah, aiming to expand what it called a security zone in southern Gaza. The military released aerial footage of airstrikes to the exact locations, and intended targets of the attacks were not immediately clear. According to Israeli military claims, weekend targets included weapons storage sites, rocket launchers and military infrastructure. It also claims that dozens of fighters were killed during the operations. Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire proposal put forward by Egypt and Qatar. That's according to a statement by senior Hamas official Khalil al-Hayya. Israeli media reported that the government coordinators unit recommended accepting Hamas's rule under a long framework. This comes as Israel resumed military operations on March 18th to pressure Hamas into releasing detainees. Al-Hayya confirmed that the group approved the proposal and expressed hope that Israel would not block the agreement. He said discussions on forming a Gaza leadership committee are underway and accused Israel of calling to protect Prime Minister Netanyahu's government. He reaffirmed Hamas's commitment to the deal while insisting resistance remains a red line. Hamas has reaffirmed that resistance is the only way to defend land, achieve rights, and thwart Israel's aggressive plans. In a statement, Hamas emphasized that the Land Day anniversary symbolizes resilience and commitment to struggle until complete liberation, including the right of refugees to return. The government rejected any plans for displacement, alternative homelands, condemned the ongoing violations, crimes and massacres committed by the Israeli occupation against Palestinian civilians in Gaza, the West Bank and Jerusalem. These crimes are accompanied by a war of starvation, thirst and deprivation of basic human rights, as well as a continuous blockade and systematic destruction of vital infrastructure. The ministry expressed astonishment at the international community's indifference to Israel's actions, calling for immediate international intervention to stop the violence and ensure accountability. Clashes broke out between anti-government protesters and police during a demonstration in Tel Aviv, urging the Israeli government to accept a ceasefire proposal and secure the release of detainees held by Hamas. Protesters marched from Habima Square to Begin Gate, where they joined families of hostages still in captivity in Gaza. The demonstration is part of a broader wave of anti-government protests that have intensified following Israel's decision to resume bombing the Palestinian enclave and reintroduce ground forces. Israeli media reported that Benjamin Netanyahu held focused meetings to discuss Iran in light of US efforts to initiate diplomatic talks with Tehran. These meetings were attended by a limited number of officials. The report also referenced the US President Donald Trump's past remarks to Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, warning of a decisive action if Iran rejected US outreach. Iran rejects direct talks but remains open to indirect negotiations. Director of Documentation at the War and Settlement Resistance Commission, Amir Dawood, has stated that Israel controls over 61% of the West Bank, including more than half of the sea areas. This is part of Israel's ongoing expansion and land confiscation policies. Dawood emphasized Israel's intensified demolitions and construction, halts to displace Palestinians, and advance settlement projects which violate international law. Also, he noted Israel's actions in the Jordan Valley and the establishment of new settlement outposts. Now, let's get the latest developments in Syria. Syrian interim President Ahmed al-Shara has announced the formation of a new government, retaining key officials. The government's priorities include rebuilding institutions, ensuring transparency, strengthening the military, and improving social services. Foreign Minister Assad el-Shabani has emphasized the new phase of Syria's diplomacy and the strengthening of international relations. Interim President Ahmed al-Shara has said that the country is entering a new phase focused on attracting skilled Syrian expatriates and rebuilding state institutions. In his speech during the announcement of the new government, al-Shara emphasized his commitment to eradicating corruption and strengthening the Syrian currency. He also expressed the goal of building a national army to safeguard the nation while prioritizing transparency, human rights, and social economic reforms. Now the latest on Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
الوضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanese Army Commander General Rudolf Heikel has visited the southern Litani sector in Ben Brakat Taya, where he met with officers and soldiers. He emphasized that the military personnel play a crucial role in defending Lebanon and contributing to its resilience. He confirmed that the army is committed to implementing UN Security Council Resolution 1701 and the ceasefire agreement, despite Israeli violations that hinder full military deployment and stability. The Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani has reaffirmed Iraq's support for Lebanese security, stability and reconstruction efforts. In a phone conversation with Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, al-Sudani emphasized Iraq's commitment to Lebanon's well-being and agreed to supply Lebanon with fuel for 6 months. He condemned the ongoing criminal attacks, particularly in the recent assault in southern Beirut, which he attributed to efforts to ignite conflict. Berri thanked Iraq for its support and expressed commitment to maintaining strong bilateral relations. And from Lebanon to the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia has announced that its forces had taken control of several settlements across Ukraine, while Ukrainian forces reported repelling multiple Russian attacks, according to the latest updates from both sides. The Russian Ministry of Defense said its forces had seized settlements in Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and the village of Veselovka in Ukraine's Sumy region. It also claimed to have downed 73 Ukrainian drones and struck 148 targets, including airfields, drone workshops, and command centers. Meanwhile, Russia accused Ukraine of repeated drone attacks on energy infrastructure in Belgorod, causing power outages to over 9,000 homes. Ukraine has not commented, but has previously denied similar accusations. Russian drone strikes hit multiple targets in Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv late Saturday, and killing 2 people and injuring at least 25. That's according to local officials and the Ukrainian military. The attacks struck a military hospital, a shopping center, residential buildings, and other locations across the city. Footage released by Ukraine's State Emergency Service showed firefighters battling blazes and search teams combing through rubble with dogs. One of the victims was recovered from beneath the debris, while Reuters could not independently verify the location. The video's date was confirmed by a statement from Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Tarakov. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a strong response from Western allies following a wave of nearly daily Russian drone attacks across Ukraine. In a video message, Zelensky said 172 drones targeted Ukraine overnight, emphasizing that the strikes threaten not only civilians, but also international diplomatic efforts to end the war. He urged the United States, Europe, and the broader international community to react decisively, warning that continued drone attacks, many of them Iranian-designed, undermine every attempt at a peaceful solution.
Яка не дає окупанту заходити на територію Сумщини, а також нашої Харківщини.
Sudanese army leader Abdel Fattah el-Burhan ruled out any future agreement with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, vowing on Saturday to crush the group unless they surrender. In a video statement, Burhan said the military would not forgive, compromise or negotiate, reaffirming the army's commitment to restoring unity and stability in Sudan. He left the door open for those willing to surrender, suggesting possibility of amnesty for fighters who laid down their arms, particularly in RSF-controlled areas. His remarks came as the army announced a major gain earlier in the day, taking control of a key market in Omdurman, a strategic area previously used by RSF fighters to launch attacks in the ongoing 2-year conflict. Power remained largely out across Myanmar's capital, Nay Pyi Taw, following the powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck the country a few days ago. The quake caused widespread damage to roads and buildings and impacted several regions, including Mandalay, Bago, Magwe, Shan State, and Saigang, and the capital itself. In response, authorities declared a state of emergency in the capital, where the earthquake triggered a major power outage. By nightfall, the city was almost entirely dark, with only emergency lights from rescue teams and vehicles visible across the capital. The death toll from South Korea's worst ever wildfires has risen to 30, with at least 40 others injured. That's according to the Central Disaster and Safety. The fires have been burning since March 21st, have destroyed almost 3,000 buildings and scorched over 48,000 hectares of land across the country. More than 6,800 people have been displaced as firefighting crews continue efforts to contain the widespread devastation. Rescue teams continue efforts today to locate 47 people still missing or trapped under the rubble of the collapsed building in Bangkok, many of them workers from Myanmar. The building, which was under construction, collapsed on Friday after the powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar sent tremors over 1,000 kilometers away to the Thai capital. Heavy machinery was seen clearing debris as rescue workers rappelled into the wreckage. Nearby roads were cleared by sweepers to aid operations. City officials confirmed at least 9 deaths in Bangkok, including 8 from the collapsed building and 1 from another incident. Sudanese Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to discuss the ongoing crisis in Sudan. That's according to Saudi state media. The meeting comes as Sudan's army regains control over large parts from the rival Rapid Support Forces in a conflict now entering its 2nd year. Saudi Arabia has previously hosted negotiations ending the fighting, which has hundreds of thousands. A senior Congolese general has expressed indignation over recent comments by Uganda's top military commander on the seizure of a city in northern Congo, raising fears of escalating regional conflict. Uganda's People Defense Forces, the UPDF, the chief, made the remarks last weekend on social media, referencing the Rwandan-backed M23 rebel group, which has seized eastern Congo's 2 largest cities since January. The conflict is the worst in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in decades, raising fears of a wider regional war involving forces from Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda. Uganda, which has deployed troops to eastern Congo since 2021 to fight other militias, has denied UN allegations of supporting M23. Hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets of Lima, demanding stronger action from the government amid a surge in crime, extortion and violence across the country. Protesters accused President Dina Boluarte and Congress of failing to address growing insecurity, saying daily crimes have left citizens in fear. Earlier this month, Interior Minister Juan José Santivenes was dismissed over what the government described as his inability to tackle the crime wave. President Boluarte has also called for the death penalty for murderers, despite Peru's constitution limiting capital punishment to cases of treason. And residential streets in the northeastern Mexican city of Reynosa were submerged after heavy rains triggered widespread flooding. The downpour caused lagoons and creeks to overflow, worsening conditions in low-lying areas of the city. Images from the scene showed vehicles struggling through deep water and residents using dinghies to navigate inundated streets. Local authorities have opened emergency shelters to assist families displaced by the flooding. No casualties have been reported so far. Now, let's get the latest economic news. South Korea, China and Japan held their first economic dialogue in 5 years today, aiming to strengthen regional trade ties as all three nations break tariffs expected from US President Donald Trump. The three trade ministers agreed to advance talks on a trilateral free trade agreement, aiming for a comprehensive deal to boost regional and global trade. South Korea highlighted the need to implement the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and expand cooperation through the proposed Korea-China-Japan FTA. The talks come just days before President Trump is expected to announce new tariffs on what he calls Liberation Day, signaling a shift in US trade policy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that a newly proposed US minerals agreement is significantly different from earlier frameworks and will require legal review before any decision is made. Speaking in Kyiv, Zelensky emphasized that Ukraine will not accept any deal that could jeopardize its path toward European Union integration. He also rejected the idea of classifying previously approved US military aid as repayable loans, saying Ukraine would not recognize such terms. On the diplomatic front, Zelensky said that Ukraine is open to engaging in talks with any Russian representative except President Vladimir Putin.
Конкретну рецензію юристів на найвищому рівні.
Latest US proposal on the mineral deal.
And here's a recap of the main headlines this morning. Israeli military begins ground operations on the Palestinian side of Rafah. Hamas agrees to Egypt and Qatar brokered ceasefire proposal. And the interim Syrian president announces a new government. And that's all for now, but don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.